Our next guest, Oscar-nominated director Baz Luhrmann. He is one of Hollywood's most celebrated directors and is known for his fantastical and glamorous movies like Moulin Rouge, Romeo and Juliet, and The Great Gatsby, and that's just to name a few. Now he has taken on the story of the legendary singer Elvis Presley in the new film Elvis, premiering on June 24th. In this scene, Austin Butler performs the iconic song, Jailhouse Rock. Take a look. Baz Luhrmann joins us right now, looking good as ever.
Very
man.
And his number one fanboy. His number one fanboy's right here, too.
He knows.
No, he's Elvis's number one fan.
We had a chat.
We're excited.
You know what? He knows his Elvis.
He knows his stuff.
A lot of people say, I'm a fan, and then, but, whoa. Serious situation,
I think I gave Chandler, our producer, a picture of me as Elvis, which I've used for Halloween over and over again.
Course.
So it's great to see you.
Now,
it's great to see
look
you.
at that.
There it is right there.
I don't get how he can be so young and still.
I'm not
going
that young.
on?
Not that young.
Are you having one beer a day?
Now, speaking of being a fan, it seems like you are a fan of iconic figures. Gatsby, Romeo and Juliet, and now Elvis. What drew you to Elvis? And also, were you a fan before you made this film?
When I was a kid, we had the cinema. We had a theatre house in a tiny, tiny town. And it used to be the Elvis matinee. So I was a kid fan, and he was in my life a bit. When I was ballroom dancing, I think Burning Love dropped, and I'd go over with a record and say, hey, put Burning Love on. But my fandom faded. I went on to other things.
Of course.
But I always loved the way, say, Shakespeare would take a historical figure and explore a bigger idea. And I always thought, if you want to look at America in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, right, he's this great way of exploring it, because he's there, one way or the other, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's where it started. It was only when I thought about the idea of Colonel Tom Parker, never Colonel, never Tom, never Parker, played by a guy called Tom Hanks. The cell and the soul, that's America. That's what I wanted to explore.
I read that you called Tom Hanks personally to recruit him into the role. Is that normal practice for you? And what did he say?
Actually, getting someone like Tom Hanks to commit to a role like this, it can take months. I sat with him, I knew him socially a bit. I thought about this huge character that is Colonel Tom Parker. Who could play that? He's kind of like a giant clown-like figure with, a chainsaw. And I sat with Tom. I told him about the figure of Parker. It might have been 20 minutes. At the end of it, he said, if you want me, I'm your guy.
Wow.
And I walked out and I said to my guys, did he just say yes? And I think he just said yes. And I think what it was he was so attracted to the character, but he also wanted to play, it's like America's favorite dad wanted to show that actually he could be disturbing.
Right.
Because he's an unsettling character.
He's sinister. But I have to tell you, Elvis is many things to many people.
For sure.
There were parts of his history that I did not know. And the way you sort of crawl through his life, and I say crawl because it's very emotional, and deal with race, deal with what some people have said has been cultural appropriation.
Sure, absolutely.
It's really interesting. Why did you tackle it the way you did?
Because, first of all, I realized yesterday when I was at Graceland yesterday, we were there for 2 days. I realized it was 5 years ago to the sort of day that I went down there to start researching. Now, I'm the ultimate outsider. I lived it. I found those people. That scene in the gospel tent where the preacher puts his hand, that was told to me by a gentleman called Sam Bell, sadly passed last year, So I kind of lived it. But I think, a lot of the artists in the film who played, Kelvin Harrison Jr., who plays B.B. King, or Yola, who plays Sister Rosetta Tharpe. The mother of rock and roll, really the inventor of rock and roll. She's in the movie.
Yeah.
Or Little Richard, played by Alton Mason. I think Yola says it so eloquently, which is, you've got to show I mean, appropriation is like it just came out of a vacuum, as opposed to you got to show. All I did was show the context.
Show the story.
What is the lineage?
Yeah.
What is the real journey of it? And I discovered a lot, and I hope a lot of people will discover things they didn't realize.
Right.
Because that's all I did. Tell the story.
Well, we have pictures that show Elvis with Mahalia Jackson,
Sure.
Elvis with Brooke Benton, Elvis with B.B. King. It was
Baz,
he synthesized
There they
this
are right
music.
there.
Yeah, this is an incredible picture. There's Elvis.
Yeah.
Look at that with Jackie Wilson,
Yes.
right? Mr. Excitement. There he is
Yeah,
with Mahalia. And I think that and of course Fats Domino, who Elvis in the film says is the true king.
He says,
of
"I'm
rock and
not."
roll.
He hated that phrase.
Yes.
Elvis hated the phrase.
Hated being
the king of
called
rock
the
and
king of
roll.
rock and roll?
He said, "I'm not the king of rock and roll." And then he turns to Fats Domino and he says, "Fats, come here." He said, "This is the real king of rock and roll." I mean, there's a difference between what, say, the colonel, the seller, the promoter,
Yeah.
the audience
Right.
put on someone and who they really are.
Yeah.
And I think what Austin Butler's great achievement is that he humanizes him. I mean, he is, in the end, this incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you know, the shame of the dad going to jail, growing up
That's it.
so poor,
Yeah.
being in one of the few white houses in the black community at
Yeah.
a certain stage, and then losing his mother so early. It's the humanity of him that I think
He
has been
does
lost
capture
in the
that.
mix.
He
in the
captured the
icon of-
duality of the superstar and the human.
That's right.
Baz, I gotta say, the film is a triumph. People should see it in theaters
Yes.
because it's a wall of
Thank you,
beautiful
thank you.
sound
Yes.
and
And
beautiful.
speaking of that, Tony,
As-
it is in theaters Friday.
Yes.
So make sure you go check
That's what I
out.
care about is, you know what?
Elvis.
Get people out of their houses and going into the theatre. And you know what? I love my jets and I love my dinosaurs.
There you
but,
go.
You know, man can
John
live
Lennon,
by Batman
we
alone.
appreciate you.
For
Thank you so
Elvis, there
much.
was nothing.
It is in theaters Friday, June 24th.
Dinosaurs.
Baz,
I'm just
thank you so
getting that now. All right.